for you to weary men.
Oh, great.
But will you weary my God also? Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil.
Sorry about that. I had the mic hot as I started out. Clearing my orifices out. Wonderful. Anyways, let's get right to the reading. Chapter 10. Dead flies cause the ointment of the apothecary to send forth a stinking savor. So doth a little folly him that is in reputation for wisdom and honor. A wise man's heart is at his right hand, but a fool's heart at his left. Yea, also, when he that is a fool walketh by the way, his wisdom faileth him, and he saith to everyone that he is a fool. If the spirit of the ruler rise up against thee, leave not thy place, for yielding pacifieth great offenses. There is an evil which I have seen under the sun, as an error which proceedeth from the ruler. Folly is set in great dignity, and the rich sit in low place. I have seen servants upon horses, and princes walking as servants upon the earth. He that diggeth a pit shall fall into it, and whoso breaketh an hedge, a serpent shall bite him. Whoso removeth stones shall be hurt therewith, and he that cleaveth wood shall be endangered thereby. If the iron be blunt, and he doth not whet the edge, then must he put to more strength. But wisdom is profitable to direct. Surely the serpent will bite without enchantment, and a babbler is no better. The words of a wise man's mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool will swallow up himself. The beginning of the words of his mouth is foolishness, and the end of his talk is mischievous madness. A fool also is full of words. A man cannot tell what shall be, and what shall be after him, who can tell? The labor of the foolish wearieth every one of them, because he knoweth not how to go to the city. Woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child. When thy king is a child, and thy princes eat in the morning. Blessed art thou, O land, when thy king is the son of nobles, and thy princes eat in due season for strength, and not for drunkenness. By much slothfulness the building decayeth, and through idleness of the hands the house droppeth through. A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. Curse not the king, no, not in thy thought, and curse not the rich in thy bedchamber. For a bird of the air shall carry the voice, and that which hath wings shall tell the matter. For every idle word shall men give account to the Lord. And also there's on earth, oh yes, people listen. I always consider it. I know. I know that I have done things that are not wise. In the sense of if I want to preserve my life, there's safe ways to go about it, and wisdom will guide you in that way. And sometimes that's the best thing to do. Other times, you're required by the Spirit of righteousness to do what you must do. But it's excellent advice. If the spirit of the ruler rise up against you, leave not thy place. What does that mean? Don't flee. Never try to run away. If you get accused of something, you confront the accusation. As far as that's my, you can run, but you can't hide, as they say. I mean, sometimes people do. They run and hide for years, run from the law. But also, in a metaphorical sense, it's like when, the law of your own conscience you should not run either, or the ruler of your heart. When it says, hey, listen to me, you don't run off. Don't run. Whoa, I'm talking to you. Yielding pacifieth great offenses. In that time, yield not to temptation, but yield to the ruler. The inner ruler is Christ. The Spirit of Christ, which we have in us. And because of that, and when it rises and says, hey, this is, again, an idealized thing. It's like there's a lot of truth to it in reality. Obviously, if you get in trouble with the law, don't confront it. Especially if you're not guilty. And also, if you've given some offense, running from it, I think he's true. The thing is, you can't live. You want to live a life forever looking over your shoulder type thing, and it's the same in the spirit. You end up living a life looking over your shoulder and with the past. Not wanting to be held account. I know, I've been through it. So I see it that way too. I'm like, there's more to it than just the surface level. That's the thing. I am. One of the things that made me very reluctant throughout time to say some things that I was thinking. It's because from my early training in the scriptures, there was this sort of impulse to read into it that I learned to despise. I didn't want to read into the Bible. I don't want to project my ideas onto it as some sort of template that I try to make it fit like a square peg in a round hole. I don't like that. I try to empty myself so I can receive God's word. I don't mind listening to people. I listen to different people sometimes, not for all different purposes, sometimes even in a biblical matter, but often not. That doesn't mean I've read things. It's like I've listened plenty. I've done enough listening. I've listened to, but I've to men. To the word, I never cease to be a listener. I never cease to be a learner, because until I've learned it all to the degree, and learn it all is a lot more than even I realized until not long. I always discover how much more there is to learn. That's what I keep finding out. I'm like, I still don't know anything. I know a lot of things, but I'm like, what do I know? Well, anyways, yielding. Especially if you've given offense, it is better to confront it than to run like a coward. That's why in my wife and I, whenever we had problems, arguments and stuff, we always worked it out the same day, or late that night, or early night. Because the thing is, only a couple times did I ever let that happen. Where I allowed myself to be angry to the next day, because I always took it seriously. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. It's not a good idea. Should always, those things that cause anger, there's always a cause. You just gotta be careful how you handle those causes. That's why I don't like to edit without a cause. Come on. There's always a cause. Anger doesn't just pop. If you just pop off angry, yeah, that's a sin. Come on. All right, it's so ridiculous. Who does that? Even if they're doing it, it seems like there's no cause. Like they're taking it out on you, and you're like, huh? There is a cause. You don't see it. It's deep in their life, their past. Who knows? That's the problem. They haven't dealt with it. They haven't allowed the spirit of the ruler, the man with the rod of iron, Jesus Christ. They apparently don't have him in their heart, as they claim. If he was in your heart, he'd be rising up against you with that rod of correction and telling you, cut it out. I don't understand how preachers can say, you don't gotta do anything he says. It's like, that's not my experience. That's not how God deals with me. Are you saying you can just get away with things? How's that happen? I don't know. It doesn't work that way for me. I don't feel like anything I ever did I ever got away with. On some level, I suppose. I've never been punished as much as I deserved. That's for sure. I deserved worse. But I certainly Here's the thing. I don't have secrets from my ruler. He sees all. So I say, like, sometimes people, aren't you worried about surveillance? They better be worried about surveillance because my government is surveilling them. The kingdom I serve is watching the people who think they're watching us, who think they're the gods, the all-seeing. The true God will eventually reveal himself, I believe. Though he doesn't have to do it now. Nope. He can just keep rolling. Why not just let it roll and see what happens? He knows what's going to happen. So we might not get to keep rolling because we're going to destroy the planet. Not with the pollution. I mean, maybe. I mean, if people went nuts with it like they used to. It's a lot. Things used to be really filthy in America. Like, they cleaned up the country quite a bit after the 70s. I remember just how dirty everything was, garbage. And people don't remember, like, but there was a big, like, anti-littering movement for a reason. If you lived in a nasty urban environment like I did. And the suburbs I grew up in were nice, but anytime you went urban, it was like, bleh. And it got nicer. Now it's gotten garbagey again, I guess. I don't go much for the urban areas, to tell you the truth. Peoria, I went down there last winter. Peoria was beautiful. I didn't know if there was ugly parts of town, but boy, the downtown was very nice. All right, let's move on. There is an evil that I have seen under the sun, as an error, which proceedeth from the ruler. I was talking about my urge initially to. Oh, just had a little weird physical jing of pain. There's an evil which I've seen under the sun, as an error which proceedeth from the ruler. When the ruler makes a mistake, when the one in charge, this is like as a father. When I make a mistake, I had to go tell him, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm the one. That's bad when you have the ruler making errors. Right? But he's saying that's an evil. Like when a ruler does badly, like our rulers do consistently. Because we have rulers. It doesn't matter who we elect president. I just noticed that, They all turn into something else, whatever either they were lying or they just can't, because there's just no way that the collective is much more powerful. That's why it's just, collapse and reform is the only what's probably going to happen, because there will be no, I don't know. I'll tell you what, whatever the big planners think they're going to do is like, it ain't going to work. They're going to go for what the mark of the beast type system. Okay, whatever. I know what to do about that. I know what to do about that. Well, I'm not. I'd be delighted. Let's have that conversation. Let's have that conversation. Let's see them try to pull that off. I know my neighbors. That ain't going to work. Even the neighbors I don't know, barely acquainted. Oh my, no. And I'm telling you, no. Not without some sort of Antichrist figure to get everyone to buy into it or something. You got to have some sort of really charismatic person. Like I said, I ain't Donald Trump. Nah. That's quite a disappointing Antichrist if he was. His wound wasn't even deadly. It was just like a little nick on the ear. No, I don't think so. Folly is set in great dignity. Celebrate. Is this not our world today? They talk about being clown world. I never talk about that, but the kids. This was a meme from years ago, actually. Before even the pandemic, they talked about clown world, like the world being just like this crazy, stupid show where foolishness is the main attraction. Like the politicians are all clown world. They're clowns. I mean, that's not a. I usually like terms that are more specific. It's like, why insult? You're a clown. It's like insulting someone based on some sort of despised whatever. Some people hate clowns. I don't hate clowns. I I've met some very nice people who are clowns. Interesting people. My grandmother lived in a building where this guy who, I forgot his name or whatever, but he'd been some clown. He went on the Bozo show and he was friends with Cookie or something. Nice guy. Didn't talk, like even in real life. I think he was actually mute. And so whatever, he went into clowning. Some people do. Some people it's weird though, right? Of course, just like, to me it's like the priesthood, teachers, all those professions where you're trusted with children. I coach wrestling. And for wrestling, I don't know if we're just ahead of the curve. I have to go through background checks. I have to go through training about, safe sport training, which is basically about not just sexual things, but also harassment and like hazing type stuff. Making sure a nice, healthy environment for the kids. I mean, goodness. I'm glad I'm in charge. There'll be none of that stuff going on in my wrestling club. But it's they train us very much because they know it's possible. When you get people who are, I was asked to do it. When people are drawn, I always just did it for my own kids. I had no desire to start my own club. I never did that, and I still haven't done it. I'm doing it with the school. So it's like they invited me. I'm the one with the good reputation and the good background checks, okay? That's the way it goes. So you have to be careful about people who want to get close to kids. You have to watch them. And you know what? Some of them are great people because they're good with kids. I'm good with kids in a funny way though, because it's mostly because of my hardness, as they like that. Little boys like tough. They like to think their coach is a tough guy without being a mean guy. That's the difference. No one likes mean people, but they do like strong people. They want to be strong and aspire to be something. And it's like that's what you got to set a good example of strength and things like that, but not cruelty and meanness and all these things. We should understand as Christians. You think people are, all these. There's a lot of really bad coaches that are Christians, which always throws me off. It always throws me off that we're all Christians here in this society, like 70% of us. And I'm out here in the country, it's probably more like 95. Because even the atheists are probably Christians out here, as far as they still go to church. Like a lot of people do. Folly is set in great dignity, and the rich sit in low place. What's that mean? Well, look at. You think about, like, there was some big controversy with some rapper, right? He had all these parties. I think it was Puff Daddy. Isn't that what they call him? They gave him some other name. I know him from back in the day when he was just Puff Daddy or something, some garbage. I don't care. But he was in trouble throwing these parties. Because when they get money, or like there was a football player. He got a lot of money. He started running like a dog fighting thing and his career was ruined. They never let him play again. They never let him play again. If you don't have a lot going for you, that can be rough. It's like $1 million doesn't last a lifetime or whatever you were getting, a couple million even. Especially after you do jail time and all that for that. Yeah, it's a rough sentence. But that's the point is like sometimes riches cause you to go low is what I'm thinking. That kind of means. Riches sit in low place. Because like you'd think the rich would automatically sit in honor, right? And they sort of do. They get honor from the people in government. But again, but there's often many times in which, they like to call it slumming it. The rich do not, like sometimes riches don't make someone behave right. Just like a king is supposed to make the right decisions, right? Folly is not supposed to be like, oh, we set this in dignity. Great. I wonder where dignity is right there in the Hebrew. I'm curious. I haven't done a lot of Strong's looking up, but I really want to look at that. Because I'll get... honor is like glory, by the way, which is a similar concept, really. It's a weird thing because it's like there's a bad seeking of honor and there's a good seeking of honor. It's bad to like try to manipulate things so people will see you and you can get honor and all that stuff. Like I write music and I want to have it have an effect, but my drive is not to get Well, my drive is to get a lot of people to see it, to get the fame, to have the fame, whatever, which means a lot of people know about it and hear about it. I want that, but not because I want to be that, but because I need to be that to do what I want to do. I can't do it as a nobody, which I very happily be. I am a nobody. That is perfectly I accept that with perfection. I mean, I had no delusions about that. I just need fame so I can take my flaming sword and slice at things with it. And, that's why I'm going to be using my Stringini Bros channel with the 100,000 subscribers to launch an upcoming song. I just had to find something that would intersect with humorous and serious. That's kind of rough. That's a rough place to go. So, let's bring up the Strongs on this other word here. I was going to bring it up and bring you along for the ride. Even if you're not watching, I'll narrate it. So, let's look here. We had the evil right here. Dignity. Oh, dignity. Yeah, repetition for wealth and honor is what I was talking about. Wisdom and honor, sorry, from the first verse. But here at Marom, far above, dignity, height. Height, haughty. Okay. Means like high things. Means like altitude, concretely an elevated place. Interesting. Foolishness, and sometimes that, like I said, it's like when people think something foolish is a great idea. Like, let's say, hey, we got to bless Israel. Let's give them lots of more weapons so they can keep bombing civilian areas with bombs, big bombs. Now, people say they have a right to defend themselves. Bombs are not defensive weapons. They had a right to defend themselves, which they failed to do on October 7th, because they had their entire Gaza garrison emptied and sent off doing some doing something else that they weren't supposed to be doing. Actually, they were taking a politician on a tour through an area where they're not supposed to be. So they, because they want to take all the land. That's why they burnt a Christian village. The rich sit in low places. You'd think they'd be in high places, right? But they're not. Things get upside down. That's what I'm saying. We're inverting the world. It's like we live in a world where someone like me, I'm a father of 8. I live at home with my wife. At night, I am home. I stay here. I don't go out to places where mischief happens. I work in my barn, in my garden. I should be a pretty innocuous figure. Just at the middle, in the middle of the country, not doing much of anything. But the world is so askew to many of them. I am like an evil monster, a patriarch. What a terrible thing. Things get upside down. We're like someone as harmless as me. I'm not harmless. I'm a positive good in the world. But I could be seen as malevolent. It's funny. Folly is set in great dignity. Yeah, it's like, oh, marriage, that's for idiots. Hey, just live together for a while. That's the way to do it. Seems like a brilliant idea. Just be a fornicator. Why? There's lots of bad ideas. But just living a normal, content life, raising a family, which has been very enjoyable to me, is somehow, that's slavery for women and for men. Because they poison men's minds on it, too. They say it's so terrible. It's like, when I hear guys, I hear a lot of these men's conversations, these young guys talking about what women are like. And it's like, I don't know. They're all talking about the wrong women. Like they aren't suitable for marrying. I don't know. They gotta look elsewhere. There's always plenty of people who have trouble finding people. I don't know. I know. And there's a thing in society where we're not having children. Women aren't having children. They're having like 0. Because I was listening to this research. The people aren't having fewer children. Fewer people are having any children. That's what it is. What it means is like if you people who had 6 family of 6s are as rare as they always have been in our country. They're not really much more common. I mean, like not always been, like since the 80s. Since like the reproduction, the big families are usually always rare. But there are people who are just never starting their family because it goes on so long and then it's too late. And a lot of that is what we're told, And like I said, it's not for everybody, but our society needs a lot of people to do it, or it's going to, we're going to have an issue. It won't be the same country, that's for sure. I've seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth. Reversal of fortunes. There's a lot of interesting stories in the Bible about reversal of fortune. Like when, for example, just Joseph, Daniel, you can throw in Esther, like same thing. Where the servant, suddenly is elevated and riding on a horse. Sometimes it's like, it makes me think of, I forgot if it was Nero or one of the emperors, one of the crazy ones, made his horse a senator. That's the kind of crazy stuff that happens. Sometimes that happens. Crazy people with power. Sometimes things get bad, and usually it stems from an error that proceeds from the ruler. When you get situations like this, it is top-down issues because they push it. The reason why is folly set in great dignity? Because the people who are in power is not just government. It is sort of like whatever powers are running that, whatever spirits, whatever. It's a collective thing. And I don't think it's like there are all kinds of little conspiracies. I don't think there's like one big conspiracy, except for the devil himself. There's no real, because I think that's not how people work. There's a lot of conspiring going on. A lot of people pushing in the same direction without, literally going and sitting down at a table and, okay, what are we going to do? I know there's a bit of that. They have their little, what are we going to do, meetings of different groups. I've been hearing about it since I was a teen. And you know what? They certainly have been doing what they said they were going to do. I remember reading books about what society was going to do. And boy, those guys were right. That's what they were headed towards. They were pushing it. Some of the religious stuff they were wrong about. I remember reading Dark Secrets of the New Age. Like the New Age movement was like the thing, which it wasn't. It's sort of, it's just a piece of the puzzle for some people. New Age, it's whatever. It's a very broad category. I don't want to like insult those people. So I don't even think, is that still a thing? No, I don't think so. I mean, sort of. Actually, it is sort of a thing, I think. I don't know if they use that terminology. Princes walking as servants upon the earth. So these are disjointed, wrong situations that, though sometimes, like I said, in a story, it can be an up thing. Like, hey, the plucky servant showed his mettle and he's now riding the horse and he's the king's favorite advisor, Great story. Or the evil king gets thrown down off of his throne and blinded and dragged in chains to Babylon. That also happens. Walking and crawling in the earth, where you betcha. I have seen them, and so that can be the result of he that digs a pit shall fall into it. A lot of times, that's true, but also sometimes the pit takes the prey. But the thing is, you make your own bed, as it says. We will reap what we sow. That's what this is saying. You try to do evil things to other people, the same's going to come back around and get you. Now, we know, as he's already said, that this is not perfect. This is not perfect. This is not absolute. We know because sometimes people dig pits and it seems like they don't fall into it. They grow old and they die. But God judges, is what he says on that. On that front, you got to leave it to God because there are exceptions. But for the most part, if you live an upright life, things will go better for you. You know, if you raise your children upright, like my kids, people like my kids, especially when they, you know, I make sure they get to know them after they've been worked on a bit, you know, because it's not like they come out I always said I had easy material to work with for the most part. They're very easy to work with. They didn't seem to have any deep rebellious spirit, but I didn't lay a lot of things on them to rebel against, you know. Like I remember some of the things friends would, you know, they make their kid pray with them for like an hour. I'm like, I think that may be like a little bit too, you know. What do you mean? You know, it's like, I don't know. It's a big ask. You know, pray for an hour. But I mean, like I said, for a man of God to think like, okay, I want to pray for an hour, go ahead. You know, but making long prayers is not like this big thing. You know, for a pretense, make long prayers. It's like, I'm not doing it for pretense. It's like, well, honestly, it's hard for me to pray for an hour straight and not start to like be grasping at things to make up. I mean, what is the quality of that prayer going to be? I mean, I do an hour-long Bible study. It's a little different. We got a lot of material to move through. There's like there's a guide. We have this word, you know. When we go off on tangents, sure. And that's what praying for an hour ends up being like if you're actually doing it, like talking to God for an hour. Well, I've probably done at least a half-hour one, you know, where I was just talking to the Lord. But if you're like doing an out-loud one with someone else, that's always like, oh my goodness, you know. At some point, it's like no prayer that you do aloud is entirely for God. And Jesus even said that. He said, I say this not for your sake, because you need to know it, Lord, but for those who are listening. Because obviously I'm not going to pray to God and tell God anything, because he knows. So if I'm open to but I might, you know, as far as the content of what he was saying there, he's like, was not something that God needed to hear. You know, like there's a lot, I don't need to say, God, I'm Paul, I got brown hair, or I used to. I have gray and brown hair. I got brown eyes. I said blue. Like I'm wearing a blue shirt. Like, he doesn't need to know what I look like. I'm just saying there's things, and I forgot exactly what Jesus was saying at that point. Well, just well, whatever. It's not important. It's just the fact that if you're praying aloud, it's so others can hear, of course. And I've never, you know, I always felt a little bit weird about that because, like I said, it's hard for me. I have to make it short because I can't. It starts feeling like a pretense, like I'm pushing it. I'm like, do I have a lot to say right now to you, Lord, in front of everybody? No. What do I say to God? That's like, so, to me, my prayer time is a very private thing. I go in the closet, but there is a place for public prayer, you know. But you be careful about that, you know, because public prayer is where people are trying to maybe get themselves a little glory. That's why Jesus was cautioning us about that stuff. Breaketh the hedge, a serpent shall bite him. Like digging a pit. I wanted to look at these metaphorically. Obviously, a pit is a form of a snare. I don't think you take that out of it when you go into a metaphor. It's gonna be, you know, you keep the meaning of the things, otherwise the words have no meaning, of course. But it's a digging a pit. Some sort of, the idea is like a pit is a pit trap where someone will come along unawares and fall into it. Okay, that's a very dastardly thing to do, especially if you're intentionally setting it for a person. You know, it's like to trap them in a pit, and also they could be hurt falling into a pit. I mean, goodness, you know. And so, if we dig pits, what would a digging a pit be? Well, you know, setting someone up, like if I was, because to me this is kind of a foreign thing. I have to think about it to come up with an example because I don't have a life example. I've never intentionally dug a pit for someone. I've had pits dug for me, you know, where someone, you know, laying when you cause someone to stumble, you know, like Jesus said, whoever causes one of these little ones to stumble, it's better for them to have a millstone hung about their neck and to be cast into the sea. This idea is like laying snares for people. So this can be verbal too, like when you're talking, you know, trying to entrap someone in their words. You know, like the Pharisees did. How did he respond? He was like, okay, I'll entrap you in your words. The baptism of John, was it of men or of God? He was like, here, you fall in the pit, not me. That's again, it's not axiomatic. I mean, it's somewhat axiomatic, but not absolute, I should say. The axiom is mostly true. It's like, no man hath ascended into heaven. Well, Elijah did, No. No one ascended like Jesus as a resurrected, victorious Lord. That's kind of the context. Because other people have been, John went to the heavens and so went to the, other people have gone up there apparently. But not in the way he did. Not in the way the resurrection that we're all waiting for will facilitate. So who breaketh a hedge? What is a hedge? A hedge is different. It's not a trap. And breaking it is not a trap. It's a different thing. A hedge is like a fence, a border. I think it was called Chesterton's fence. And this is a metaphor that's kind of understood. You don't remove a boundary unless you understand why is it there. And of course you must have the right to. Like you buy a property and there's a fence. You may think like, well, what's this fence here for? And then you realize, oh, it's a snow fence meant to, or whatever. You get rid of things you don't necessarily know what you're getting rid of. Some sort of border, some sort of boundary. When you break boundaries and you do taboo things, the devil is there waiting for you to bite you, And that's what breaking a hedge symbolizes. It's like breaking through the boundary, doing things you shouldn't do, crossing lines. I'm gonna break into someone else's property to get into their stuff. Whoso removeth stones shall be hurt therewith. Removing stones. Well, stones are also put out for markers, boundary markers. It's kind of like a deceitful thing. I think that's. So, like, I'm trying to think of another. I mean, it could be like someone stealing stones from someone else, I guess, like building material, like just taking it to use themselves, as taking someone else's. It could be maybe stealing, because it is removeth. Let's look at how that's translated elsewhere, because I'm not. There's a couple possible meanings there, or it seems to me. All right. Let's see what it says in the NIV for verse 9. Whoever quarries stones may be injured by them. They say quarries because they want a specific. That's what I'm talking about, interpretation. Because it's like they're like, okay, quarries. They want you to think in that way. And the word is not to quarry, I doubt it means that. It means to cause, to blow, bring, get, make, to go away. So more like to properly to pull up, especially the tent, or to start on a journey. Like pulling up stakes, like we would say, to pull up. And then it can mean, especially the tent pins, start on a journey. Interesting. I found that interesting. I always love that deeper when they have that kind of like metaphorical idea behind the word, and they tell you like, oh yes, it means like that. So this idea, pulling up stones, like tent pin, it doesn't mean more like removing markers, but let's just set that as one possible meaning. Let's just look at both, because like I said, I can be wrong and be right. I can have the wrong actual idea of what they were trying to say. Also, it could be possible that both meanings are intended. Like it could have meant both in their sense. Because I don't see how they get quarry here. What I'm saying is it's not a function of... I see the NASB does do quarried. But that's probably the same place. And because if you're removing stones, you might be quarrying. Okay. And that's fine. So digging, we've gone from like really dastardly to kind of transgressive to now just sort of neutral in that case. When you're quarrying stones, there's a risk. That's the thing. It's like their life, when you take risks in life, it's not a shocking thing if, I'll go back there. Okay. If you get injured in it. And it's like, oh, look at the mechanic got hurt working on cars. Who would have thunk? Look at the fireman got killed in a fire. The lumberjack got killed by a tree. Are you kidding me? This is shocking. The guy who quarried stones got hit on the head with a rock. What? This is astonishing. How does God let these things happen? Well, it's part of life. That's what I was saying. Sometimes things happen. It's not because you're evil. It's not because, God's angry. Sometimes life is just, there are things that happen and we scratch our heads. It's not always evil from the Lord, meaning as intended to get our attention for sin. It may be just because, like I said, it's just our time. It's like, you've lived a good life, I'd like to live better and more. I want more time, Lord. I do. I want him to come in my lifetime, but I feel like I want him to come late in my lifetime. Not too soon, but I don't know I don't know. Who knows? I said, I don't believe we're in the end times, but man, it could get going. And like I said, I'm not waiting for any rapture. I'm looking for signs in the heavens. Fearful signs in the heavens. The sea and the waves roaring. Men's hearts failing them for fear. It's like, I kind of try to put it out of my mind a bit, but you know what it was? I was going through a period of time where I was settling it in my heart that was a very real possibility. And to accept it as like, that's what's probably coming. Whatever's coming is probably not good. Like accepting all of that it's inevitably going to be extremely difficult for everyone on the planet to live. And, or maybe not everyone, but certainly I think that we're having troublesome times coming here, boys. I'm telling you. We've been up to no good. We let our government get up to too much shenanigans. We shouldn't have a secret spy agency that runs its own foreign policy and decides to throw countries over and all that stuff. That's really malevolent. We're at war with the world. We're at this constant war with the world where we're trying to become the hegemonic we want to become the beast, and I don't want America to be the beast. No, thank you. I want to devour the whole world, huh? You think we'd have, with the Bible in our hands, with all those politicians on the Bible, too blind to see what they're driving themselves straight into. The mouth of destruction and mayhem. Was he that sows war and devastation will reap the same. And the fools who think, as long as we keep acting like it will never come back here, it will eventually come back here. If we keep acting that way, we could stop. We can stop that, and the world may say, we're not going to punish the population of America for the sins of the government. We'll let the American people decide what to do with their leaders. Then they will probably forgive us and let us just go back to our borders. But if we insist, the beast, because if you want to be the beast of Revelation, that means the beast is going to take a deadly wound. I joke about, I don't entirely joke. I want, if this is a beast rising, I want to slay it. I want to poke it. I want to poke at its head. But in truth, I would think that if the beast was one, it would take a lot of people pushing hard against it. And then it'll come back to life. And that's how you know there's no stopping this one. Except you still got to try to do the Lord's work, which according to the book of Revelation is to continue to prophesy against it. Yeah, it's a lovely menu. So remove a stone shall be hurt therewith. Hey, okay. And that goes, and honestly, as a doublet, I should have kept reading. He that cleaveth wood shall be endangered thereby. It's like, hey, what do you. It's just like Jesus understood this when the devil asked him to throw himself off the temple. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to, no thanks. I understand things work a certain way. The world God has made for us is consistent. We, as far as the laws of physics appear to be very consistent across time and space, as far as we can tell. The way the world works, chemistry, biology, as far as we understand it, which is not that far. I was saying it's funny when they talk about. It's gonna be a funny thing to talk about, like, because they have no really answer for abiogenesis, which is life from non-life. As far as like the chemistry is a mess. So they always talk about this panspermia from space. I'm like, it's just from where in space? Like light. The nearest star is light years away. So it traveled light years. Some like precious biochemicals that are very susceptible to degradation because they don't exist in nature. They, biological precursors are going to just be floating along in space. And then how'd they get there? We can't do the chemistry on Earth. Well, it's got to be done in space. Oh, really? Or on some other planet. Oh, okay. Can you give me the exact conditions under which these things will work? I guess that's the idea. Maybe like somewhere on, there's a planet where, but it would all have to be in the solar system. There's no way stuff's going to come from that far. I don't know. And even so, why is, it's like, why are all these different moons like made of weird stuff? Like one's frozen, one's like a sea of methane, and this one's got, just weird. Like how that all formed individually. They've talked about planet formation and stuff and all that. It's like, man, it's just crazy how much we don't know. We know a lot, but it's like, if you really understand, it's like, we know little. The more we keep looking, again, the more they stick that telescope and look farther back, the more confused they get. It's because it's like, we don't know what's happened. So, we'll just take that as the duh verse. Duh. Like that. It's like, of course. Hey, it's a dangerous world. If you do dangerous things, you're in danger. Look out. Be careful. Get your head screwed on straight. Look out. Watch out for yourself. Don't get killed in a misadventure. Okay? Wisdom will, like if you're cutting wood, be extra super careful, man. I almost got killed by a tree. My son almost saw me take God's uppercut, as I call it, because the tree barber-chaired right in front of my face. And I leaped back at a moment, and it just flew by. One of my brushes with death. Believe me, I was shaken. I still think about it. I try not to, actually. I try not. It's one of those things that sometimes you'll think about without wanting to. Let's talk about something else. Okay. If the iron be blunt, and he do not whet the edge, then he must put to more strength. But wisdom is profitable to direct. Very simply, right? If you've got a blunt edge on something, and you don't do anything about it to sharpen it, right? Then you got to work harder. You can either have a sharper axe that works easier or let it get dull, and then you're going to have to work. It's harder to chop with it. You're going to have to put more strength into it. Just like anything. Not like anything, but that's the idea. Like anything that fits it as an analogy, right? If the iron is blunt, what does that mean? Well, I'm insufficient. Like I'm not good in a certain area, like I've got a need. I need I need to learn more about something to do a job, to fix something on my car. When I got to learn something. So I got to go learn that. Nah, that's not going to work though. Put two more strength. In this aspect, that's not good. That's a terrible example I used. Because it's talking about the fact of it's something where, work smarter, not harder type idea, right? There's you can stop. And it works with my chainsaw. It's true. It's like it gets dull, and then you have to push, and you're using more muscle to cut, to force those teeth in a bit, because it helps, because it needs it. When they're really sharp, they just rip through that wood. And so in some ways, it has to be maintained. Otherwise, it gets harder. And that's so much of knowledge, and practice. I guess I gotta start working from the analogy. Like I think about guitar practice. My fingers can, my calluses will go away if I don't practice guitar. They kind of almost do sometimes, but then they really form fast because I guess it's, I'm too my hands are already calloused without having guitar calluses, so it's like just a little extra. You must put to more strength, but wisdom is profitable to the right. If we use wisdom, we can. As I tell my children, you can learn things the easy way by listening, or the hard way by fooling around and finding out. Right? You can not listen, do the fool's thing, just don't do what I said, do the opposite of what I said, and then you can find out the consequences of that. It's negative. You have to use more strength to do this. And this is not meant to be purely negative. That's why I'm struggling to come up with proper analogies, because it's more about you and yourself. You have to decide, am I going to sharpen my axe to make this job easier, or am I just going to slog my way through it? Work harder as opposed to smarter, as I say. And that's kind of a platitude in our world, but there's a meaning to it. Because, meaning that sometimes you can use wisdom, it's not always true, but in some things you can use wisdom to make your job easier. If you can simplify it. It's been done. This is like necessity is the mother of invention sort of thing. Like when there's a need and you use wisdom, you can discover new things that you didn't know. The things like fixes for things. I've learned a lot over the years about various things. Like I know how to unclog drains really well. I know I'm really good at unclogging drains. I can tell you now. I've learned a lot. I think I've recently peaked on that one because I've figured a few things out. I'm not gonna share here because this is not the channel for that. There's plenty of plumbing. I probably should have listened to more plumbing videos actually. Yeah, but there's certain peculiar things. I guess that's what it is. I don't always go every problem to the internet. That's the thing. Is like I could have gone to the internet and just asked someone the wisdom, because it's right there, of like, give me some different examples or show me the best way to, drain that's become clogged with like fats from kitchen grease and stuff. And it's like literally solid in there. Like what's the best way to get that out? It's definitely a drill with the thing, with the rotor-rooter thing, with the wire that you send in there. But it's not a rotor-rooter, but I always call it that just because whatever. It's a drain thing, a drain snake, whatever. There's a coil on the end. But you can't manually, it won't work. You have to have a drill to just agitate it and just slowly work through all that stuff as the hot water comes. And then that's why you need to clean out the back end. It's important. Like I said. Now, the thing is, I could have just gone to a video and maybe learned very quickly instead of waiting years to figure out. Well, because the problem was never big enough. I didn't wait years while I had that problem. It's recently come up for someone else, actually. It wasn't. Recently came up for me, too, actually. I don't know how for many years we didn't have that problem, honestly. Oh, because our drain used to go right into the ground underneath the kitchen. That's right. It was just water under our kitchen for years. So literally a pipe that just would overflow underneath the floor of our kitchen. It's like, when I opened up the floor, I found that out. Because the house was built, it was built in 1864, apparently. I've always said 1866, but 64. Okay, so, hey, wisdom will direct you. It can be profitable. It can make things faster and easier. It's just an example of being wise that demonstrates that wisdom can make things go faster. You don't have to work as hard or suffer as much, by being smart about things. Like I said, you can listen, and that's one way you can whet your axe. Pay attention. Listen to others who have the knowledge. Because it's good to listen to God's word, but there are other things which God's word will not tell you to do, but it will give you the wisdom to think about things properly. Surely the serpent will bite without enchantment. Meaning, I want to check the meaning of that, because it immediately strikes me as, if you don't enchant the serpent, it'll bite you. Okay? And a babbler is no better. So, this babbler will bite without being What? Enchanted. What does that enchantment mean? Why have we got to enchant snakes? Isn't that something like snake charming? Isn't that from India or something? Like, that's not, biblical. Not really, of course, but, not that kind of snake charming. But let's see what he's talking about. And obviously, they may have seen that. But the point is, the serpent will bite without enchantment. A whispering or charming. Okay. What does the NIV like to do with that one? See, it says skill will bring success. That's so... Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't bring it over here. Look at this NIV here. If the axe is dull and its edge unsharpened, more strength is needed. But skill will bring success. See, they leave out... Like, you almost can't get to what I was trying to say. Like, it's almost like they want to obscure the metaphorical. I like the ambiguity sometimes that the King James leaves in it. If a snake bites before it is charmed, the charmer receives no fee? What? What? Okay. If a snake bites before it is charmed, before. I gotta look at another translation because I don't trust the NIV. That's so weird. It makes me even start to think about like those conspiracy theories of like here's the New Living Translation, which I expect to be awful. If a snake bites you before you charm it, what's the use of being a snake charmer? That seems so inane, I can't believe they even bothered to go with that translation. ESV, English Standard Version, let's see what they think. Oh, I went too far. The serpent bites before it is charmed, there is no advantage to the charmer. Before it is charmed. What's the New King James go with on there? A serpent may bite when it is not charmed. The babbler is no different. They went with the babbler again. All right. I'm going to have to go into the... let's go back to the King James with Strong's. Oh, where's the NASB? Or just the NAS? The B is like kind of redundant. Okay, wisdom has a... Okay, wait. If the serpent bites before being charmed, there is no benefit for the charmer. So I'm guessing they're taking the word that the King James say is no better, is the benefit. There's no benefit. There is no benefit. That's definitely in the thing. There's no benefit. Wait, I gotta go back. So let's look at the Strong's King James. I want to see how many words are we actually dealing with here. Let's see how much time we got. We're almost done. So, surely a serpent will bite without enchantment, and a babbler, lashon, tongue, advantage or profit. So tongue is, you can't say it's lashon. There's a little pop-up. I just want to quickly look at all these words. And enchantment, this is what I was wondering about, is lachash, 3908, and babbler is 3956, which seems to be a related word. So they're going with, I may be definitely departing from the King James on this one, because lakash, properly a whisperer from lakash. Wait, okay, whatever. So what is this lachon? Is it from lachash? Is it or no, lashon? And this is what? Lachash. Oh, they're different. Different. I think they're different. It sounds similar, though. They're similar. So in, a babbler, evil speaker, language talker, tongue wedge, lashon, also feminine, shown from the tongue of a man or animals. Usually literally as the instrument of licking, eating, or speech. And figuratively speech. An ingot, a fork of flame, a cove of water. Huh. The tongue. Interesting. And so the idea of the charming is a whisper. They're similar sounding words, so there's some sort of poetic thing. In the Hebrew, it would sound, it would prick your ear, be like alliteration, but with a little bit almost rhyming. Okay, so they're not related words, they're a similar sound. The beginning, a serpent will bite without enchantment, and the babbler no better. Yithron, it means advantage or profit. So the serpent is Nahash. Nahash Nashak is the serpent will bite. And with enchantment, so it's like, now the words are going to take, but the base word is Nahash, Nashak, and then it goes Lachash, Lashon, Yithron. You see that? That's the sound of all those words. Now, I'm not sure the exact form it takes in the thing because the pop-up is just going to give me the base form of the word. But it probably sounds all rhymey. And you notice they say this 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 5 words. In English, though, we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like 13 words. I didn't finish counting them. Many, 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 more than double the words. It's like the serpent bites without enchantment. The enchanter is not profited. Okay. The serpent bites without enchantment. I'll take that as, it does mean the babbler, by the way. It's referring to the enchanter. Okay, well, I'm going to go back to my original thought on this because we're at the end of the study here, and I'm a little bit flummoxed by it. The translation's fine. I'll take their translation. I'll take the King James. It should say the babbler is no better. You could say like this: the serpent will bite without the whispering of enchantment. The whisper means like whispering, and the babbler is no better. So, if you don't properly charm the snake, it will bite. And you will not be improved by the fact that you were talking. You know what I mean? So you have to have the correct words. You know what I mean? You can't, it makes me think of like those vampire movies where it's like, you have to really believe for that to work. The guy tries to hold up the cross and it doesn't work. And Dracula just takes it. It's like, you have to have faith for that to work. I always like that moment. And then, but it's like, if we take this in a metaphorical, the serpent is that dangerous, it's like, well, the devil ultimately, but what is the devil? He represents that predatory, he's a roaring lion going about seeking whom he may devour. Okay? And, you have to, so what is it? Well, let's say the thing which is trying to eat you or bite you or whatever, or is malevolent towards you, must be dealt with the proper, you have to use the proper spell, so to speak, to stop it. Or you will get bitten. I guess that's the right, And what is a proper spell? We don't use magic or believe in it. But the point is, it's not about magical spells and charming snakes. Any more than the charming snakes is about when Jesus said they will pick up serpents. They will take up serpents. This is another they will take up serpents thing, Except they won't take up serpents. Because they're fools. Fools take up serpents and they get bit. That's what there you go. Honestly, it's got to be something like what we were talking about in the other verses, right? It's in the same vein. It sounds off like it's not, but it is. It's saying the same sort of things. Like, hey, people that play with snakes get bit. Duh. Maybe it's another one. Maybe that's how I should be taking it. I think that is pretty good. And people play with snakes and babblers, again, because he's saying people play with snakes. He's sort of, I like that. I also, people play with snakes. get bitten, and the babbler's no better. And because I think he does mean, I still like it separated. I think the King James in some way did you a better service by not putting those things too, because it doesn't mean enchantment and enchanter. The other word doesn't mean enchanter. It means a babbler. And an enchanter is a babbler in a pejorative sense. So Solomon might mean this. If you don't enchant the snake, you're going to get bit. Or it means like people that play with snakes get bit. And a babbler is no better. Because why? They play with words. And words, the tongue is a fire. It is set on fire of hell. No man can tame it. You must enchant your tongue. Your tongue is the snake he's talking about. I figured it out. Lord Jesus, thank you. Thank you, Lord. I know what that means now. Yes, the tongue is the serpent in this one. If you don't enchant it, it will bite. That's why the babblers, that's how babblers get bit. They keep multiplying the words. They keep speaking and saying stupid things. Of course, if I like that I kept talking, I finally figured out what it was saying. But we're talking about the word here. We're trying to magnify the word of God, not ourselves, not my own words. The serpent will bite without enchantment. If you don't take care of that thing that is dangerous, your tongue is a danger. It's not the only thing, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that is a great way to look at it. If you don't, you got the proper spell on it. Because babbling, when you go on babbling, you're going to get bit. That snake's going to bite you. Now, and here's the thing. I don't know. Maybe they get, do you think the NIV, when they translate that, they were getting that? Snake bites before his charm. The charmer receives no fee. Is that a good interpretation even? I mean, come on. Throw them off the track. No, a babbler is no better. I side with the King James. I flip-flopped on that right in this study, didn't I? But you know what? I like that so much better. That makes that such a cool verse. It's cool. You know why it's a cool verse? Because of my vanity. Because I love it when I figure something out like that and how you're supposed to take it. Because I think 100% that's exactly how you take it. A serpent will bite without enchantment, and a babbler is no better. You got to control your tongue, buddy, or you're going to get bit. Just like a snake people that handle snakes get bit by snakes. People that play with rocks get hit with rocks. People that play in trees fall out of the trees and have logs hit their heads. I mean, when I go out, I'm all scratched up, and you know why? Because I'm all bruised up everywhere. Because I've been working on roofing, my dad's roofing stuff, and I'm getting beat up. I'm out doing stuff that's dangerous, and I get bonked. People that play on scaffoldings fall to their death. I'm aware of that. But it doesn't stop me. God help me. It's like people that drive cars get into wrecks. But you still got to live. We got to talk, but let's not babble. I think it was worth it taking all that time to get through those verses because, man, I feel so delighted with the meaning of verse 11. Because I didn't get it. Maybe you understood it right off the bat. I didn't. I was just like, what's that mean? And then to wait around for so long and finally come up with a meaning that makes me, that speaks to me. That's a tough verse as far as the translation. I think in Hebrew it probably comes off pretty simple. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to enchant, because he's playing off the fact that the word babbler and enchantment sound the same. So the tongue is no better. You know what I mean? The tongue is unprofitable. The word means the tongue. Because the serpent will bite without enchantment, and the tongue is unprofitable. They should have translated it tongue. But babbler, again, you get choices because it means tongue, it means babbler, it means inlet of water, like a tongue of water. All these things. And when you get words that mean so many things, it's like, okay. But I think I don't know how exactly. I almost want to retranslate that, and then I should do like a Paul's translate. I wish I would make notes like that. Like, okay, we got to change this part. I go through the Bible so much. I've gone through the Bible and found things like this. I write them down in my book and stuff, and they're there. But I haven't ever cataloged all of it. But whatever. here it is an ephemeral experience for you to enjoy. Here today, gone tomorrow, because I never know when they're going to delete my channel. But anyways, I do have backup copies. I do record them all, and if they ever delete my channel, they would probably all end up on my website. I don't know if I got enough room, but supposedly I have unlimited. It's like until you start uploading terabytes of video. Yeah, I might just start new ones. Whatever. I'll go on Rumble and do all new. I don't like that which is old. If it gets destroyed, so I'm like, hey, let's just go on and do something new. The Lord's work goes on. I had many Bible studies I never recorded, and the Lord has many other servants to rise up and take my place should I fall. Anyways, remember, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, and he is the fulfillment of the law. Until next time, which should be Monday.
Hear you now, O house of David. Is it small for you to weary men? But will you weary my God also? Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall